This is the Final Round Podcast, coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now your host, Chris Marquardt.
We're starting to wind down the week at this point, so yeah, pretty good.
Good deal. Show planning went a little bit smoother this week, didn't it?
Yeah, it went all right. Yeah, it went okay. I will say that I am still wanting to work on some of the guests that we kind of talked about in our planning meeting. So
yeah,
hopefully we can get one of these people to, one or more of these people to agree to come on the show. So yeah, hopefully we just have to keep the viewers in suspense a little bit and surprise them. But yeah, thankfully I talked to Mark this morning and, hey, you free? And he's like, yeah, let me check. And I've been wanting to get Mark on the show for a while, and I will say, unfortunately, Mark is typically busy Thursday evenings, so it's difficult to get him on. So I was really pleasantly surprised that we were able to get Mark to join us tonight.
Without any further ado, Mark is waiting in the wings. Mark, how are you?
I'm excellent. How are you guys?
We're doing okay. Getting ready for the racing season. Looks like we might have some decent weather actually this weekend, so maybe we'll be able to.
Oh, really?
I thought so. I got the text messages from a couple of the dirt tracks that they were all good to go.
They're ready to go. Okay. Well.
And I'm hoping that the text messages that come Thursday aren't premature.
Right. Are you ready to go out and start testing yet, Mark?
I'm real close.
I would say, so what's real close? I mean, powertrains in it and stuff like that?
Yeah, everything's pretty much ready to go. Just got to add some water, put the rocker arms back on it, adjust them up, and fire her up.
Oh, yeah. So you could go testing this weekend if you wanted to then?
Yeah, I probably could.
I would say, will you, or are you planning on it?
I wasn't planning on doing anything this weekend. I was figuring on maybe starting up next week during the week.
Yeah, I know that, Phil and I, with his car, I mean, while he's off in Indianapolis or Indiana at least this week, and, just with the weather the way it is, it's like we're not going to even start working on the car until he gets back at the end of next week, so we won't be out probably until mid-May, but the first TNT race, I mean, I think we had in the show banner, you're obviously been a regular competitor on the TNT Series. I think the first TNT race isn't until May 22nd, maybe?
I believe it's the first Friday night at Lancaster, the 24th.
Okay, all right. And so did they confirm that they're going to be back out at Lancaster, all the TBDs that they had in the schedule, that they're going to be back out at Lancaster then?
Well, at least I know the May 24th race is going to be there.
Which I will say that, details. Last show we had, it was just kind of officially confirmed that Vito and Mike Swinarski had bought the track, but there was really nothing from a schedule standpoint at that point in time. I thought I saw, like yesterday maybe, that they actually had a calendar of events out for Lancaster now?
Well, I saw just for May. They had, I believe, the 18th of, like, a test and tune. I think that's on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And then the following week, the Tuesday, test and tune, and then cruise night, and then right into the Buffalo Street Outlaws and TNT.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's good. I guess that means that things must be moving forward with the closing on the sale, right? And it's not just a verbal agreement anymore.
Yeah, I really don't know, but it sure sounds really good from the meeting they had the other night at Scoops there in Lancaster.
Oh, that's right. They had the drivers' meeting, right?
No, well, it was more joining the points and pit spot.
Oh, pit spots. Okay. Well, I would have to assume again that they probably wouldn't be having that meeting if it didn't look like they were actually going to close on the property, right?
Yeah, I would agree on that. It was a good showing for a lot of people. Showed a lot of support there. I was quite amazed at the amount of people that were there.
Well, that's good. I would say, did they officially announce? I thought I saw on the calendar that it had New York International Raceway Park on it. Did they announce at the meeting that that's what the official name of the track is going to be now? Is it going to be New York International Raceway Park?
I believe so. Yeah.
Mouthful.
Well, yeah, it's a mouthful, but I mean, I guess my only concern is a little confusing considering the fact that Empire Dragway used to be New York International Raceway Park. So, I mean...
Yeah, I mean, the details.
But my guess is that, I don't know. I don't know how things work or how business deals went down. At one point in time, Vito actually basically had an agreement to buy Empire Dragway from Bob Metcalf, and at that point in time, it was New York International. And when he did that, I don't know if he potentially bought the name or if he just liked the name. I don't know how it ends up being... that is going to be New York International Raceway Park, but I guess in the end, people around here are obviously still going to call it Lancaster because it's been Lancaster for 60 years or something like that. But I don't know that anybody really cares what they call it as long as it's open.
At one point, wasn't it Dunn Tire Raceway or something like that?
Oh yeah. It was Dunn Tire Raceway Park. Yep, it's Dunn Tire obviously sponsored it. Maybe even officially last year. It might have been. I don't know for sure. Maybe it was Franco's. Oh, I guess Franco's. I think Franco's just sponsored the drag program in general, but yeah, it's good to know that things are moving forward, and we're still gonna have another track in the area to continue to race at. Now, Mark, I guess getting back to you, how did you end up finishing last year in TNT? You didn't have a really great season last year, did you?
You know, I had a pretty good season. I started out with a win at Lancaster.
Yep.
And the qualifying points were tough for me.
Yeah.
I was either 698, 699, or 705. When it came to qualifying, I just couldn't get it where I needed it. And being Ted using the double points for qualifying, that really sets you back when you don't get any qualifying points.
I know that, I have to say, I am not a big fan of the huge emphasis on qualifying, but it is what it is, right? I mean, everybody knows heading into the season, what the points are and how it's been run. And it's been like this for the last, few years. But you're not the first person to come on the show and basically say that, dang, if it wasn't for those stupid qualifying points.
Yeah, it's tough, but I mean, everybody runs so close. It's just unbelievable.
Right.
So, how do you split points? I mean, if you look at the point standings from last year, there's several drivers that are slashed. Is that representing a tie?
No, they're team drivers.
Okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah, they're team drivers. So TNT.
I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
The TNT actually has. I don't know. Did you have a team driver last year, Mark?
I did not.
Okay, so you're actually, I bet you, in the minority. A lot of guys have team drivers.
Right.
Seven of the top 22 had team drivers.
That's quite a few.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the top 7 had team drivers.
Yeah, and that's part of that I know is the fact that I don't know about. Did they go to London last year, Mark?
I don't. Yeah, I didn't go, but I don't think so.
I would say, I mean, they go to Grand Bend every year, and for guys like in the Rochester area to go to Grand Bend, it's easily 3. It's probably 4 hours, I bet, from Rochester.
It's almost 4 hours for me.
Yeah, so maybe it's even it's closer to 5
that's
hours.
A major
maybe.
Undertaking.
So right, so I mean, there's a perfect place where having a team driver, if you had somebody that lived up in the Toronto area, be like, hey, you know what? I don't want to go to Grand Bend, and for events at Empire, you might not want to travel all the way out to Empire. So why don't we team up, and you can cover kind of some of the races out in the Ontario way. I'll take the U.S. races, and we can go from there.
So the points go to the car.
The points
essentially go to the team.
Well, the points go to the driver who
Of that race.
At that race who claims points. So if both me and you were team drivers, we have to basically say, okay, Chris is running for points.
Gotcha.
And I guess, Mark, you probably have to do it. I mean, because there's qualifying points, you got to do it is when you get your tech card, right?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, I'm not positive, but I think you're right.
So you go there and you basically say, okay, who's racing for points today? Okay, it's going to be you, Chris. And of course, no sooner do you turn your tech card in that I'm going to go out and I'm going to run a perfect run and be number one qualifier and win the race and get no points for it.
So that's how luck goes.
So that is the
around
tough,
here anyway. That's how luck goes.
That is the tough part about the team drivers is you do have to pick right. But I don't know all the teams in general, but my guess is that most of those guys probably split the races pretty evenly, or the secondary driver was really just a backup driver, maybe for a couple of races that the primary driver wasn't going to be able to go. Is that? You've raced, quite a bit in the past, Mark. I mean, you've raced Super Gas, you've raced TNT. I mean, you've really pretty much concentrated on the TNT races. Is that what the plan is again for this year?
Yeah, I believe it's probably what we're going to do again, and then I'd like to race more of that, Super Gas too. I'd like to try that a little bit too. Just trying to figure it all in.
I would say, well, we're all. It's pretty much all 8th mile now. So anybody that wasn't crazy about running quarter mile before, don't have to worry about that now. And I know you switched to a big block. Was it last year you switched to the big block, or is it this year?
No, I never. I have it. I just never. I haven't done it yet.
Okay, so you're still going to run the small block again, and your small block. I don't know. It's still not winding the same RPMs that it was, right?
Oh yeah, she's still getting up there.
Which at the quarter mile, when you raced that car with a small block in it in the quarter mile, right?
Oh yeah.
I was saying, what RPM did you go through the traps with the quarter mile with that engine?
It was like 8,800. That's
quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess it's not 10,000, but it's 8,800 is quite a bit. I have to say, I'd be if it was my car, I'd be in the car and probably be cringing. Please stay together. Please stay together.
Yeah, there's no better sound than that. I'll tell you that, though.
I have to say, I do love the way that your car sounds going down the track. I mean, it has a bit of that old, modified Eliminator sound to it, right?
Yes.
And I guess speaking of which, I mean, that's one of the things that I always like to do is spend some time talking to people about kind of history. So, I mean, not saying you're old, but you did race modified Eliminator, but... we've had some discussions in the past. I mean, you and Jim Salemi were neighborhood friends, right?
Yes.
And then how is it, I guess, that you really got into racing? Was it you and Jim that got together as far as when you got into racing?
Yes, we did. We got together and wanted to build a car.
And that was your first experience. I mean, you were a fan at that point, but that was really your first experience was, let's build a car and go drag racing.
Well, Jimmy and I, back in the day with Joe Schmitz, we were helping him and doing everything we could on that car for a lot of years when we were just, teenagers, young teenagers at the Old Man Engineering Shop. So it was in the blood right away, so as soon as we could make enough money to do it, we did it.
Okay, so you actually started, I guess I didn't realize that. I knew you did hang around Joe's shop a lot, but I didn't realize that you were, helping out at the shop or even going to the track and kind of helping out there as well.
Oh, yeah.
Now, which was that when Joe had the Vega?
Yes, he had the Vega.
Okay. And so now when you and Jim decide to do something, I know it obviously, I know, and some people might know this, some people might not, but, you and Jim and Joe kind of all went together in on a car, but was that after you and Jim had gotten started and done your own thing?
Yes. it was after the fact that when we crashed the first car, not being very old.
Yeah.
And Joe came aboard, and the three of us were together.
Okay. So what was the first car then that you put together?
It was a '77 Vega.
Okay. And did you basically jump right in and start running at the time modified eliminator with it?
Yeah, it was. That's what we built it for, and
that just seems so crazy to me.
Yeah.
Purpose built.
Yeah, I mean, how the heck did you scrape together all your lawn mowing money to build a modified eliminator car?
Well, Jimmy and I both got hired at GM pretty close to the same time, so living at home and having some extra money, so it was in. Jeff Hoyt did a lot of work for us, and and Schmitz, we had a lot of the right connections in the beginning.
Yeah. Now, was Jeff Hoyt, was he on his own building race cars at that point in time?
Yes, he was.
Okay. And did he build that car for you then?
Pretty much. There were some parts that we had gotten, but he pretty much did everything on the car. So,
geez, I mean, you really when you got started, I mean, you really did jump in with both feet. I mean, you basically built a brand new car, and
yeah.
And now, what was that running in modified?
That was Sea Econo Altered.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for those of I guess the drag racing fans that aren't old enough or never followed modified, so the Econo means it was a single 4-barrel. But now, were you driving that car, or was Jim driving it, or were you splitting duties? How did that work?
Well, we both kind of drove it. In the beginning, I was driving it, and then Jimmy was driving it. Yeah, we kind of split it up.
And I'm assuming that, like most modified eliminator cars of the day, that it was, probably, a Doug Nash 5-speed or something like that?
No, it was still a Power Glide. That's where the Sea Econo Altered. It was a Power Glide, and with a converter.
Oh, did you could run with the Econos? You didn't have to run a Power Glide with an Econo, did you?
You didn't have to, but that was the way to go right off the bat.
Well, so say you.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to run a 5-speed.
I would say my old man would have argued with you about that. But
he was the toughest guy to change to an automatic.
Right.
He was one of the last, him and Schifferle.
Yeah. So were you? I mean, going the Power Glides. I mean, at that point in time, Power Glides were really not all that common. Were you working with Opie and Carl at the time? Then were they building transmissions and converters for you then?
At the time, I wasn't. Well, Carl, he was toying around with automatic transmissions, and he kind of got involved with that. Yeah, it all kind of fell together because Jimmy and Carl are cousins, and and then Opie a little later after we broke a bunch of torque converters, Opie wanted to know what was inside them. So
right, so from first names, so Carl is Carl Atipio from Competition Transmissions, and Opie is Brian Doan from BDR, who is unfortunately no longer with us. But yeah, both of it's really crazy just because of the fact that it's like all the guys that we're talking about here. It's like Opie went on to do very well at BDR and build a whole bunch of extremely well performing converters, and Carl to this day is still building racing transmissions, and Jim Salemi is now off. He's been building pro modifieds with G-Force race cars for I don't know, it's got to be 30 years at this point. But it's crazy at that point in time, all of these guys were kind of on their own, kind of coming together and just getting started, really.
So check this out, right?
Yeah.
This is a picture that is on Mark's page,
which I can't see, by the way.
It's about to come. This is a picture from.
I'm not going to be able to see it even then, but that's okay.
Why is it off? Is it? That should come to life here in a second.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Now
so,
now maybe I'll be able to see it.
So I should have put the picture up before I did that. So if you look in the background,
Yep.
it's a Jim Salemi car.
Yes.
It's pretty cool looking. And then
Fiat.
This Gary Louth car here from Dragway Park. You know the picture that we're talking about?
I believe I do.
Okay, can you tell me a little bit more about what's going on here?
So it's a picture of Gary with his full blown mid 70s afro standing in front of his Nova, which I don't. Did Schmitz buy that Nova?
Yes, he did.
Okay. And then in the background you can see Jim Salemi's Fiat. Now, did Jim build that car brand new, or did he buy that from Jimmy Otti?
No, he built that. Yeah, he built that car.
Yeah, that's after you guys had. Well, I don't know. It had to be after you guys split up, right?
Right after. Yes, exactly.
So, you guys raced together. Now, when you crashed the Vega, well, did you crash it or did Jimmy crash it?
Oh boy,
I crashed.
Okay, so you crashed the Vega. At that point in time, that's when you, Joe, and Jim got together and formed a team?
Yes, and built another car, right.
Oh, so you built another brand new car at that point?
Exactly.
Okay, so, and was that a Monza? Is that right?
Yeah, that was the Monza.
Okay. Now, who built the Monza?
Jeff Hoyt.
Oh, okay, so Jeff built that car too. So another interesting story is that Jeff Hoyt went on to a career with Jack Roush, building race cars for Roush Racing. So cool. He kind of sucked too. He wasn't very he wasn't very talented. So. And yeah, my understanding is that I don't know, somewhere along the way, I guess Jim started, I won't say working for him, but he was starting to get some lessons at least, or that's I don't know a heck of a lot about it. I've never really talked to Jim about it personally, and I'd love to have Jim on the show, I guess, and kind of get his side of the story. But I guess, when did Jim kind of start doing his own fabrication? I'm assuming it was when you guys were together, right?
Well, Jim had worked over at Jeff Hoyt's and done a lot of things with Jeff, and then eventually when Jeff wanted to go to Detroit to be with Roush, Jimmy took over his shop. Okay, all right.
So he did actually work for Jeff Hoyt then. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jeff builds the Monza now, and what year was that you guys got together, started racing?
I would think that had to be the early 80s.
So still modified Eliminator at that point in time, right?
Right.
And it couldn't have been for... Well, I don't remember. It's funny because I don't remember how it all went down, how long Modified Eliminator was still around after... I remember when ProGas became a thing... we started running ProGas, but did you, once ProGas and Supergas kind of came around, were you guys still running Modified Eliminator at the time?
No, that's where it all kind of went to, right to that deal.
Yeah, that was my I have to say that was my recollection, is that when ProGas came around, that was pretty much the end of Modified at that point in time.
Yeah, nobody wanted to kind of police, the combinations anymore, and
it was virtually impossible for a small local track like Lancaster to be able to do that, right?
Yeah, it was pretty tough.
So, how many times have we talked about on here the number of different ways that a new class has come along to kill the previous?
Yep.
But yet history just continues to repeat itself as one prices itself out, another one comes along, we all jump on board with this one.
Oh, yeah.
The diehards hang around that one until there's only 3 cars left, and they still try and race a division with it. And then by that time, that middle class is pushed so that they can use all their old stuff, and then we make a new class.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's, it's funny too. I mean, there's certainly people are still people that were around then when modified was around are still very passionate about it. And I mean, to this day, the other day I was watching a video. Somebody shared a video on Facebook, and it was, I don't know where it was from. I don't remember. But it was somebody standing at the top end with their video camera as Modified Eliminator was running. And I'm telling you, there's just no better sound than listening to those small blocks scream down the quarter mile at 9 to 10,000 RPM. And it just sounds incredible. And anybody who's been there and has heard it, it's like, man, why did they do away with that class? It was so much fun. But a big problem is that it was so darn expensive, too. I mean, most weeks that we went out to the track, it's like, all right, we might be able to win first round, but we knew we weren't winning the whole race. The only way we were winning the whole race is if, horseshoe, up our rear end that day, and everybody red lighted against us, So that was the problem. Is the
you get
fact
15 other people to red light and brake, that wins easy,
right? Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, that was the problem with it. I mean, I would love to go back to a certain, all things being equal, I'd love to go back to that style of racing, but I also know that I can't afford it. And I have me personally, and I would say most racers really don't have a lot of interest in going to the track, knowing that you have close to zero chance of winning. And what they had at the time, even though I think the spectators still kind of liked watching the cars.
Zero chance of winning, and a pretty hefty repair bill if things go wrong.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, all of the small block racing that I've been around in my time, it comes back to that motor needs to be tended to in a much different way than what a big block is going to require.
It's you spin that motor over as fast as you possibly can is what it gets down to. And it's like, all right, so how do we do that? It's like, all right, well, we want to run the lightest valve train that we possibly can, which makes everything flex more. We want to run the lightest connecting rods that we possibly can. We want to run. So now you either start, doing things like, all right, I'm gonna, and it didn't exist back then, but today it would be, all right, I'm gonna run, titanium rods and carbon fiber this and, beryllium that, and to make things as light as you can. And for the guys that can't, it's like, all right, well, you know what? I'm going to drill holes in my connecting rods because that'll take some weight out of it. So sure, that'll take some weight out for a little bit.
It will. Yes, it will. That'll be a great decorative paperweight here in a couple races too.
Right, but the racers were really flocking away from the competition just because of the fact that people got tired of spending the money with no chance to win, and it's a bummer. But that's kind of what it was. But so you guys, kind of like us, ran Modified Eliminator. Now was it you and Joe bought Jim out of the partnership?
Right.
Okay.
We all said to each other, when somebody wants out, just let us know, and that's what happened. Jimmy wanted to build his own car, and Joe and I, bought him out and ran the car from there.
And did you and Joe continue to run it in Modified, basically up until the end of Modified Eliminator days?
Actually, just a little bit there, but then it went right to, like you said, the Pro Gas.
Right.
And that was a 5/10 tree, and I think I was in the final pretty much all the time, and I red lighted every time in the final. Never won that year.
Oh, really? So, I mean, it's amazing to me. So, I mean, you're really a ground floor competitor with regards to Super Gas, Pro Gas. Did you like the change at the time?
Well, I didn't, but it was the type of thing where, it was getting to be mega money to try to run with some of those other guys that are 4/10 under the index.
Right.
And you're only, 2 to 3 under the index. You're giving up 1/10 of a second right off the bat.
Right.
It gets a little tough.
Yeah, I've told the stories before about, basically, racing F.J. Smith and having to give F.J. Smith the head start, even though his car was faster than ours. It's like, yeah, okay, this is going to go well. That's just the way it was. So how long, I guess, did it take you really?
Did they make the check out to him before the
lights? Oh, right. Oh, yeah, right. So how long did it take you to, I guess, get to the point where Super Gas had really grown on you that you're like, yeah, I really enjoy this style of racing?
I mean, I just enjoyed racing in general, so it was like, okay, something we can do and kind of have a good time and not spend a ton of money.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it went to.
Now, how long did you and Joe then stay together?
I bet you it was probably a couple years.
Okay.
And then he wanted to do something on his own, so then I bought him out, and I had owned the Monza all by myself.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm trying to remember. There's probably pictures of. So, I mean, every time you're buying somebody out, you got to repaint the car. I'm sure there's a picture of the Monza with just Mark Herbold on the side of it, right?
Yeah, it was black. John Sokol Sr. Painted that for me.
Yeah.
Well, he painted all our cars there back in the day.
Yeah.
And it was really beautiful. It was black with scarlet red and a nice blue. Really enjoyed that paint job.
I would say most of your cars, at least that I remember, up until the Corvette that you have now. Well, I mean, I guess the Roadster, the Bantam, I guess that wasn't black. That was I don't know, what would you call that? The deep purple?
It started out black, and then
it did.
Overlays on it from like a maroon.
Yeah. And
then a burgundy, and there was some gold in the overlays.
Yeah. So did you basically run the Monza then for a couple of more years, and then after that, that's when you had the Bantam built?
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I let Cefaletto take it to Norwalk.
The Monza?
Yeah.
Okay.
He wanted to just go beat up on it. I said, go have some fun.
Yeah.
And about a day later, he calls. He goes, there's a guy hanging around here. He wants to buy this thing. I said, really? And I drove down there and sold it to him, Bob Davies. And he ended up buying it, and Dan lettered it for him. Him and his wife's name on it, and off to Ohio it went.
So, did you ever know what happened to that car?
Yeah, he ended up taking the small block out and putting a big block in it.
Yeah.
And he went slower.
Well, that's what you would normally do by going putting a big block in a car, right? Big blocks are, I say, like my dad used to say, my wife's car has a big block in it.
So he had called me up and says, hey, can you take a ride down here? I want you to, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe take it for a pass. And what a big change that was for me. Just waiting for the thing to RPM was probably the weirdest feeling for me.
Right.
And then somebody else was driving it and ended up crashing it, and that was the last of that.
That's the unfortunate end of so many race cars.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, so at that point, you sold it, and did you know you wanted to build the Bantam at that point in time?
Well, there was some talk about, doing something a little different with Dudley and building a new car, and Cefaletto. We were almost gonna buy that Asian few that altered that Danny Townsend had. Oh. And then Dudley says, well, I can build one, like that.
Yep.
So that's what we ended up doing, and that never came, running it that way in AA altered. So then I joined the Supercharged Outlaws and had a small big block in it.
Yep.
It still had a lot of RPM to it. Was Paul Zagoda's one of his old motors.
Okay.
And away we went.
Now, initially, were you thinking that you were going to run it in AA Alter? Is that what you were originally thinking?
That's what we were going to do. We were going to follow NHRA and run AA Altered, yes.
Yeah. And I guess what made you back off from that?
Well, with Cefaletto, he, had some issues, and God rest his soul too.
Yeah.
Things just didn't work out that way, and it would have been pretty neat.
I would say, was Cefaletto building the motors for you guys when you had the Monza?
Oh yeah, he was doing a lot of that work for
Okay.
us. Guida's car, he would do Guida's motor, and he did Dan Delaney's motor,
Yeah.
and little things here and there. But yeah, he was a big help.
I would say I don't know if I had have told you this or not, but I actually know his. Let's see, it would be his nephew. It was just by chance during in work. Moving around, going places? I stop into this place in Buffalo called PVS Process Equipment, and I see that as I go and I meet with the president, and his name's Pete Suffoletto, and I'm like, huh. That's kind of a unique name. I'm like,
Yeah.
I wonder if there's any. I wonder if there's any relation. I'm like, there's got to be, right? I mean, it's like it's a very unique name.
Right.
And then as I'm sitting in the office, I see a picture of a 60. I want to say a 67 Camaro. Was that Suffoletto's car? 67?
Yes. Yes.
So there's a picture of that car in the background, hanging on the wall, doing a wheel stand at Lancaster. I'm like, bingo, same family.
Yeah, big gas.
So his brother actually owns this PVS Process Equipment, and his nephew Pete Jr. Or his son Pete Jr. Works there as an engineer, and it's one of those small world type of things. And I will say Pete Sr. tells me stories. I guess Suffoletto was older than Pete was, and he's like, I remember going to the races with my older brother and watching him race and helping him, and kind of the typical little brother thing. It's like the big brother's the hero, right? So yeah, it was interesting to hear stories. He was a talented guy, and I know I've heard a lot from Dan Delaney about him being able to build motors and do those types of things. So. So that's why at that point in time you had the Bantam, and it's like, all right, well, we'll detune this thing and build something a little bit milder and just go race with the supercharged Outlaws.
Exactly. That was a lot of fun.
And did you, I guess, did that seem, I guess, a little strange to you? I mean, at that point in time, your racing career, everything that you ran was normally aspirated.
Right.
I mean, was there any concern or trepidation about,
You put it to the floor the same way.
Were you just confident that you'd be able to do it just because of the fact that, like, from a tuning standpoint, that Dudley was helping you, and he obviously had a lot of experience with blown motors, or?
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of good help. That was, we burned some spark plugs up and, tore up some bearings, but you learn by doing it.
You're a bigger man than I am. I have to say, I'm afraid to do that. It's like I can't imagine actually taking and all right, here's a blown motor. Go ahead and put it in the car and go see what it does. I wouldn't know the first thing about it, right?
It's brave.
I mean, it's a different combination completely, right? I mean, they're lower compression motors generally, right?
Yeah.
You then spin with overdrives, and it's like, I don't know anything about. I know you change the pulleys to change your overdrive ratio and stuff like that, but other than that, now is that on alcohol too?
That was on alcohol, and then we built a gas motor to try to run that quick 8 at Lancaster.
Oh, okay.
Because they wouldn't let you run the alcohol back then.
That seems crazy to me now, but. Yeah, I guess the fires from the Indy 500, basically were fresh in people's minds, right? So it's like, alcohol is dangerous, so we can't be running alcohol. But so now what year was this? Now that you're doing this, this is late 80s.
Yeah, that car was built in late 80s when we had it in the Clutch Artist Autorama.
Yep.
And that was like 89.
It was a beautiful. Just a really beautiful car.
Yeah, I was pretty proud of that car. It was done right and done nice, and went pretty fast for what it was. 750. It went best out in a quarter mile with only a 369-inch cubic inch steel-headed big block.
Yeah. Yeah, considering the time, like I said, 750 is pretty fast.
Yeah.
You look like you had a question, Chris.
I was waiting for the cue to. I've been sitting on this photo. This is one of the prettiest cars that I've seen.
Okay.
This is just a gorgeous combination. It appears to be. It almost looks like it's the same Corvette as what we have now.
Okay.
But it's just a different color combination with the light blue and the red.
So that is the same Corvette that we have now, correct?
Right. So it's just gorgeous. I was waiting. We were talking about late '80s. I'm like, we got to be getting close. We got to be getting close. I'm dying to know more about this. It's just
that was the Southwest colors.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, the guy worked for Southwest that owned that car.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, so he, I'm sure that was their paint.
Yeah. I will say it sort of reminds me of Ricky Smith colors.
Yeah, it wasn't one of my favorites, but it did all right.
Now, somewhere between the Bantam and here
the Roadster too, right?
Well, the Bantam was the Roadster. That was the only Roadster you ever had, was the Bantam, right?
Yeah, I got involved with Dudley driving his car there for a little bit.
Okay.
The Fiat. We did that for a few years with Shintas.
Yeah. Now, was it after the Bantam? Is that when you started driving for Phil?
No, Phil was in the early. Let's see, that was probably 87, 88. I was driving for Phil pretty regular.
So you were actually driving for Phil at the same time that you owned the Bantam then? Right.
Oh yeah, he would on that 3-wheeler that he's got. We would run his car, and then he'd wheel me back to get to my car.
So were you guys? So this was locally you were doing this, or were you guys traveling a lot with Phil's car at the time?
Well, it was like Cayuga and Empire and Lancaster. Pretty much that was it.
I would say I forwarded you, Chris, a picture that Mark sent to me. I don't know if you can display it or not, but it was a picture. I mean, Mark just sent that to me, I don't know, a couple of days ago, a picture of him and Phil in the winner's circle at Lancaster. Well, I guess we'll call it the winner's circle. At the time, it was basically just park your car in front of the tower and get your picture taken. But that, I'm guessing, had to be late 80s, early 90s from at that time. I mean, you had your very fashionable short shorts on in that picture.
Yeah. Yeah, and those sneakers. Never tied them, right?
Right, exactly, yeah. Okay, so I guess I thought you had started driving for Phil after you sold the Bantam. So you were actually doing double duty at that point in time.
Yeah, a couple of times we were doing double duty. That was pretty neat.
Now, when
the Roadster would start up, there was no sight of Phil. Never around. He didn't want no part of that blower.
Okay, not his cup of tea, huh?
Right.
I would say I guess I won't bring that up to see if I can get him to put a blower motor in the Camaro now. So I got the impression he didn't have the Bantam all that long. How long did you own that car for?
Oh, we had it quite a few years. Let's see, it was from '89 to I bet you we had it a good 10 years.
Okay, all right, that was longer than I thought.
Yeah.
And after the Bantam, were you then just driving for Phil exclusively?
Yeah. Well, I drove for Schmidt's his Monza for a while too.
Oh, okay.
That car, and we did a little with the Nova, and I helped Putman out for a little bit there too.
Yep.
In fact, I even got to drive the Tavy's Willys.
Yep. I would say Chris got the picture up of that you sent me of you and Phil. I have to say I love that picture. That was definitely the good old days of Super Gas at Lancaster for
sure. Is that the same car that he's got now?
That's the same car. Yeah, that's the same car that I'm driving now. Yep. It's got a different.
Jeff Hoyt built that car.
Yeah. Jeff Hoyt built that car too. It's got a different paint job on it because I decided I didn't like that paint job and crashed it.
That That's the one from the in-car camera that you showed me, right?
Yes.
You can see the window blow out.
Yes, you see the rear window blow out, exactly, yeah. But yeah, same car. It's a good working car for sure. So now, when did you get? When was, I guess? So as you're racing Phil's car, and you have you're driving for Schmitz, and you're helping Dave Putman out. I mean, when was the next car that you owned? Was that the Corvette that you have now?
Yes.
And you really haven't had. I want to say. I mean, this is the terrible thing when you get old. I'm going to say you haven't had that car very long. I was going to say 5 years, and you're going to tell me, no, I've had that car for 10 years.
Actually, longer. End of 06, I got that car.
I knew it. I just knew it. So you've had that car for 12 years now. That's incredible. I can't believe that.
Mm-hmm.
And was that car, when you got it, was that an old Comp Eliminator car?
Yes, it was all legal. See account altered.
Okay, so you had no desire to try it as it was, though?
Take it to run see account altered?
Yeah.
Oh, I had all the desire to do it, but it's just way too costly.
So did you buy that car complete then, with the motors and everything?
I bought it complete, brought it home here, and my first pass, I went 553 with it in the 8th mile.
Wow. That's incredible. And that was a real small block that was in it at the time, right?
Yeah, that was 320 inches.
And yeah. Chris, we couldn't see it because Chris wasn't on camera. He gave me a what look. Yeah, that's how you build the Comp Eliminator motors. Light car with D-stroke small block at 8 bazillion RPM.
Yeah, left the starting line at 6,500 with that car and shifted it at 85.
Yeah, that's just a lot. That's a lot. So now, did that car come from Ohio as well?
That car came from Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay. And how did you find that car?
Actually, I was on eBay.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I was on eBay, and it was, I'm reading an article, and it talked about the passing of, somebody, and this is the car, and I don't know much about it. And
okay.
There are the pictures, and, I looked at all the pictures, and I knew when I saw the See Account Altered on it, I knew that, and it had King's race cars on it. I knew he was a Comp chassis builder, and I said, that's probably a really good car.
Uh-huh.
And the person didn't know much about it because, the person died, and that was left to them, and they were trying to settle the estate. And so I just stayed in contact, and of course it was bidding on eBay, and I was the high bidder, but it didn't meet reserve.
Okay.
So then I just, sent a text saying, I'm sorry, about your loss, and what would be the price to buy the car?
Yeah.
And it come back, and it was a she, and it was a little different knowing it was a woman trying to sell the car.
Yeah.
And I had asked her to do this and do that, check this and check that, and she did what she could, and we agreed on a price, and I sent her some money, and we waited a little bit because I couldn't get the truck and trailer out, and we had a celebration for my father. He was going to be 80. So I says, you don't mind if I come down in 3 or 4 weeks? She says, oh, no, it's in a heated garage, all alarms, no problem.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. We ended up, going after my father's 80th birthday party and driving to Atlanta to pick it up and turn around and drove back home.
I bought a Chrysler off eBay like that one. Bought a Chrysler. A little different experience for me, though.
Yeah, it was pretty scary.
Yeah. We got down there. The car was a different color.
Oh, boy.
the photos that were listed on eBay were of the car from about 3 or 4 years before.
Yeah. It
had fallen into a pretty significant state of disrepair.
Yeah.
They tried to put metal flake on it by putting nail polish on it and hitting it with glitter. And the person selling the car didn't own the car.
The hardest part was it was all apart. The doors, the front end, hood, the back part. The tires were off it. It was up on jack stand, so the guy actually had two cars. He had a 63 Corvette that he was running on NHRA tour, and this car, I believe, he just stayed home on weekends and ran it, in Atlanta, just for have some fun to do while he wasn't NHRA racing.
Right. And so then when you got there, you had to basically reassemble the car to be able to take it home?
Basically, yeah, we had to put it all back together and put it in a trailer. But I'll tell you what, for not knowing anything, it went together pretty easy.
Nice.
How long had the car sat there?
Like I said, he was racing it, so I don't know when he had passed away. I never asked her that part, but like I said, I brought it home and fired it up and went to Lancaster with it and ran it that whole year.
So as far, when you bought it, as far as you knew when you bought it, the car was essentially in race ready condition. So you basically brought it home, just gave it the once over, and said, "All right, let's start this thing up or try and start this thing up and see what happens."
Yeah, exactly.
That's got to be the super scary part, right?
I even got his fuel that he had.
Oh, no kidding!
Sitting there, I grabbed that fuel, and it was C23.
Oh, yes.
Did you make an offer? After you had to put the car together, did you try and make some sort of offer on the 63 too while you were there?
Actually, that had left. She had just sold that too. There was a couple motors that I was trying to buy, but I just didn't have enough cash on me to make that happen.
Man. I
would say Phil has told me that you're the best wheeler dealer he's ever known. He's like, if you want to buy something right, he's like, go have Mark Herbold buy it for you, and you'll do well. So you bought the.
You get lucky sometimes.
Well, yeah. I guess look. I think we all know that if you're not in a hurry and you have the cash and you're willing to wait for the right deal to come along, you can find yourself some good deals. It's when you can't wait and you don't necessarily have the money to be able to jump on a deal that potentially presents itself, right?
Exactly. That usually works out pretty good for you when that happens.
Right. So at this point, you've been now competing the car for 12 years. I guess where would you rank it as far as all the cars that you have? Is it? Do you enjoy racing this one any more than any of the others that you had?
Being that I had so many small block stuff. It feels pretty much the same to me as the other cars, and driving Phil's car for all them years, it feels pretty much the same.
Yeah, the car you have now, it's basically, let's call it's a all-tube chassis, strut front end, all the rest of it, right? It's got all the modern components in it, so yeah, I could definitely see where it would probably feel very, very similar.
Yes, just like when you go from the Corvette to Phil's car, it's definitely different for you.
Oh yeah, you can tell the difference between driving a dump truck and driving Phil's car for sure. It's amazing when you let go of the button in the Corvette and you kind of feel this thing wind up as it labors to get off the starting line versus that instant shock that you get with a chassis car. And the other thing that just blew me away driving a chassis car for the first time was I just couldn't believe how easy it was to steer. I'm like, wow, I could steer this thing. I could drive it around the pits with one hand. I'm like, I can't do that in the Corvette. Yes, it's nice. I'm actually looking forward to driving Phil's car here this spring. Now we got the new struts on it and trying it out and seeing if it's, I guess, improved over what it was. But yeah, looking forward to that. But yeah, it's. I'm sure it's old hat for you. The vision, how is the vision in that car?
The scoop is a little bigger than I would like, but it's a little tough.
I would say that's one thing with Phil's car too. I will say, with the Corvette being my Corvette being a stock Corvette, it has a little bit higher seating position, and I can have a hard time at times, seeing out of Phil's car. You sit so dang low. Those dumb chassis builders, build these things so low to the ground. It's hard to see at times.
Yeah, it definitely is. The scoop sometimes, because I give everybody pretty much a good head start.
Right.
I'm on the stop pretty long, and when they're in my right lane, that scoop, I can't even see where they are.
Right. Until you're on top of them.
Right. I'm like, where are they? The scoop's in my way.
Right. And so, you running TNT, you're running on the 7.0 index, you're running 7.0 at 120-ish?
I've gone 120, but it seems always, around the high teens.
That seems to be just the average where you kind of end up overall?
Yeah. 17, 18, 19 in that range.
Yeah. And at this point, so you still have the small block in it, but it's not the 320 anymore.
No, it's a 353 now.
Which is, how did you get to 353? Was that a 327 block?
It's just a 20 over 4-inch bore.
Okay.
348 stroke.
Okay. And do you like this? Did you do that just to give it a little bit more torque, or did you do it just to, when you freshened it? It's like, hey, you know what, we're gonna bore this thing over a little bit more, or?
Yeah, it was just what we could make with it, with what we had parts wise, because I got so many small block stuff laying around. That's what we came up with.
Yeah, and you didn't want to go and have to buy a new crank and all the rest of that stuff, right? There's nothing wrong with it. No reason to throw that stuff in the garbage.
Exactly.
Exactly. And so as far as racing this year, it's going to be TNT mostly around here, and hopefully we're going to get to see you do some super gas racing with us. I think we have 4 races right now on the schedule. I've already talked to Phil about potentially, we'll see, rescheduling one of those races maybe, because I think we're on the schedule the same date as TNT, and I generally don't like to compete. I mean, there's a lot of guys that will run both series, but I don't know. You typically won't double enter, right? I mean, I know I never do.
I sometimes I do with Lancaster with Top and TNT, and it's just way tough. Like the first week at Lancaster,
too much.
I did it just to get a couple extra passes in, and when I was getting down there with the TNT toward the final, I just couldn't. I said, I can't run top 2 again now.
Right. Yeah, I watch guys. I have to say, I watch guys doing it, and I'm always just amazed. And I look at myself, and I'm like, that doesn't look like it's any fun.
It is fun if you can keep it under control. It's just tough switching the delay box from the full tree to the pro tree, and trying to keep everything in sync. But with Dave Kennedy around, it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
That grand goal of even trying to use one as a test session to feed the other.
Yeah.
The information doesn't even translate over tit for tat the way that you want it to, because something's different or this changes. It's just you're paying extra money for the track time and I get the extra passes, but it just doesn't ever. All the people we talk to about it that have that sort of mindset are like, it's just too much.
Well, and what happens is that if you end up going a few rounds, now you end up hot lapping this thing, and yeah, that's, like I said, to me, that's when it's no fun, and you end up, it's not that you can't win in both, because there's plenty of good drivers out there that know their cars and know how to dial their cars for when they're hot, but it's like, I can't tell you the number of stories, and Mark, I'm sure you have a few. It's like, transmission got hot and I didn't account for that, and I picked up 300ths, and that's it. I was done. And like I said, you do it long enough, I guess, and you have a car that you're familiar with, you can overcome those types of things. Yeah, for me personally, it's not something that I do a lot of, so I'm going to get burned in something like that for sure.
No, you definitely got to be on alcohol, and you got to have, alternator on it, and
right.
You got to have it all.
Now you're running racing fuel, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I thought you were a racing gas guy. I
Yeah,
didn't think...
C14.
Yeah. Well, just like always, I mean, feels like the conversation's just getting started, and here we are an hour into the show, right? I guess is there anything that we haven't covered that you're like, hey, you know what, we really need to talk about this?
Yeah, we covered a lot, that's for sure.
Well, like I said, I generally like to kind of get the history, and so now we can document it. If there's ever any questions, your grandkids can go on YouTube and what was it that Grandpa used to race?
Yeah.
Cars with engines that burn gasoline?
Yes, exactly. What's that?
I did drive your dad's car one time.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah.
I can't say that I knew that, honestly. I knew that Mike Shalali drove it once. I know my uncle drove it once. I knew that Mike Janis drove it once. But, yeah, I didn't know that you drove my car once. Yeah,
he says, hey, come on. Let's come take a pass in this thing.
How about that?
And,
I'm assuming that was at Lancaster.
No, it was Empire, quarter mile.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and I didn't listen to him because when I let the clutch out at 8,000, as soon as I went from the tree to the tack, it was already too late.
Right. I'm sure. I mean, I remember him telling people basically, let go of the clutch, and as soon as you let go of the clutch, push the clutch back in to shift again, to shift into second gear.
Yeah. As soon as I hit second gear, I had to go to third because it was already there.
Right.
Wow.
But I mean, it was crazy. I mean, I don't know. I mean, at that point in time, I mean, well, I guess it depends on the year. I mean, because even that's a crazy thing is that mid-70s and modified eliminator, I mean, we had 650 rear end gears in the car at one point in time and a 327 first gear.
Right.
You're not going to go very far, and you're going to have to shift that car. And even with a 5-speed, I mean, I know my dad was shifting into fifth gear at Lancaster with that gear combination. So, I mean, now you're basically in fifth gear screaming for the last half of the track at Empire. I mean...
Yeah, I think I went 0.3 slower than your dad went before me.
I would say I remember watching Mike Janis drive the car at Lancaster and being nervous. I'm like, please don't go faster than my dad. Please don't go faster than my dad. And I will say Mike did a pretty good job of driving the car, but I still think he was, I don't know, 500 or 600 slower than what my dad did. And it's like, okay, whew.
Yeah. With clogs on.
With clogs, exactly, yes. I don't know if I ever told the story on the show of my dad racing Mike Janis and Mike wearing the mask.
What now?
Oh, the scary mask.
The scary mask.
Yeah.
So Mike, I don't know if Mike did it all the time or if he just did it once in a while, but yeah, so my dad has Mike Janis, and I guess... I don't know what combination. That must have been in the Chevy 2, I'm guessing, that they had, right?
Right.
And so my dad looks over after doing the burnout, as I guess they're staging or whatever like that, and as he looks over at Mike Janis, Mike turns and looks back at my dad, and he is wearing this crazy mask, like a Halloween mask, crazy mask. And my dad was like, he's like, at that point, he goes, I was just laughing hysterically inside the car. He goes, race was over. I had lost. As soon as I looked over and saw that, I had lost. And like I said, I don't know if that was something, prank that Mike pulled all the time or just once in a while, but it worked on my dad for sure.
You know, arsenal of masks.
I don't know.
You know?
Yeah, and the clog thing. I mean, he literally used to race his car with clogs.
I got grabbed a pretty good gear with my 68 Camaro with clogs on all the time.
I mean, that had to be just a fashion statement, right? I mean, those things looked as uncomfortable as all get out.
They were pretty comfortable. I enjoyed wearing them.
I'm gonna find you a pair of clogs.
All the Crocs now, everybody wears those.
Right.
Ones. Kind of the same principle.
Well, at least those are a soft rubber, though. I mean, wood. I mean, a block of wood. I mean, strap a block of wood to your foot. Not to mention the fact that I'm really bad, like in flip flops and stuff like that. I don't own a pair of Crocs, and I'd be tripping all over the place. But yeah, that was also that was back in the day when you could race the car in jeans and your regular, street shoes and no safety equipment, basically.
All you needed was a jacket and a helmet, and I pulled my car in off the street, that Camaro I had, and take the mufflers off, and let's go run.
Right. It's I mean, obviously the safety advancements are good, but yeah, it's crazy now to see pictures of like the window nets. The first window net's a little teeny string window nets. It's like, what the heck is that going to do? It's like as soon as your arm hits that, it's going to rip that thing. It was really crazy. And I know I told the story about. I'm sure I told the story about taking a ride down the track in my dad's car
on the passenger floor.
On the passenger floor, right? And my dad's in his racing jacket and helmet, and I have a helmet on. And I probably borrowed a jacket from one of the drivers, but yes, I'm literally just holding on to the roll bar with my arms. He's all strapped in with 5-point seatbelts, and yeah, terrified, absolutely terrified. I still have nightmares about that. I would say that car was violent. It at this point, I wish I would have had a chance to drive the car when I had a 5-speed in it.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe at some point in time I'll win the lottery, or my good pal Mark Herbold will win the lottery and give me enough money to put the car back to the Doug Nash 5-speed. But
put the 50-pound flywheel.
Right.
Oh my God.
Speaking of which, did you see the picture that someone posted? It's been all over Facebook about with the clutch disc through the firewall.
I didn't see it. No.
I was wondering if it was somebody's car locally, because I've seen it in my news feed all over the place. But yeah, the disc went and came out the top of the dash, I guess I'll call it, and it's like 3/4 of the way out. It's almost escaped from the car, but not quite. And it's a scary looking picture. And yeah, like I said, the 50-pound flywheel, I definitely would not have wanted to do the all right, let's rev this thing up at 9,000 RPM and let the clutch out and hope something doesn't explode.
Oh yeah, everything used to break back in the day. Holy cow.
Yeah, they didn't build. Unfortunately, they didn't have the quality controls that they do now, or the materials or manufacturing processes, and
or the price.
Or the price. Yeah, or the price for sure. I might still have a 50-pound flywheel in the garage, I bet.
Oh, yeah? Wow.
I'll have to look. I'll bring one into the show, and we can do a show and tell if I still have one.
We'll get a hand cart.
Yeah.
It's a bag of dog food.
When I was a kid with the old man engineering there, he would do all the trannies for most of the 4-speed guys around. So they would bring them in, and he'd take them apart and fix them up and make them right. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. That's one thing I will say I liked about the 5-speed. The power glide is kind of black magic to me, with all these valves and springs and hydraulics and stuff. And the 5-speed was very easy to understand.
Right.
This shaft turns this gear, and this gear meshes with this gear, and it's like, okay, that's pretty simple. But yeah, that got to be. I mean, at what point in time? Well, I mean, did you ever drive race? I guess a car regularly that had a manually shifted transmission in it, or?
Yeah, I had a '68 Camaro that was my first street car, that before we built the Vega, that I had just an LT1 GM motor in it and a Muncie 4-speed in it with 12 volt in it, and it ran pretty good for back in the day.
But
out of street racing with that car.
Now, that wasn't the car that your brother Dave ended up with, was it?
Yeah, that's the car.
Oh, no kidding.
Huh.
Yeah.
And
Paul Lazarski painted that one.
And Dave sold that car, right?
Yeah, he did something. He traded it for a Corvette or something, like a '76 Corvette.
Yeah. I have to say, and I know I've told him this, and I'm sure I've said it to you before. I loved that car as a kid. That car was super cool.
Yeah, so that he got it, and I had gone 738 with it in the 8th mile, and he got it, and he wanted to put the blower on it. So we ended up changing the pistons, just putting a flat top piston in it. He put the blower on it, kept everything pretty much the same converter, same gear, and he ended up going 690s.
That is so. That was so fast. It's fast for a street car even today.
Right.
That was so ridiculously fast back then.
Yeah, you think how long ago that was, right?
Oh yeah. He would have been. I don't. I'm sure he never ever raced it on the street, but man, he would have been able to make a lot of money racing that car on the street. Lieber's.
I don't know what he did on the street, but I know a bunch of times we raced when I had the car on the street, and it was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, 690. 690 car, like I said today, is still a really fast street car. And the unfortunate thing is that with the advent of street outlaws, right? People look at it, it's like, oh, those cars are street cars. It's like, well, they race on the street. They're really race cars that just race on the street. But today there are some crazy fast, let's call it street cars, if you will. Rod Sadbury, his car was one of them. Who was the other guy too that had it was either last year or. Was it last year? I think it was the guy that drove his car to Indy and qualified in Comp Eliminator or Pro Modified.
Yeah, right.
Drove it in the front gate. Running 590 in the quarter mile. That's just crazy.
That's nice.
But that's obviously to an absolute extreme. But 690 is a fast car, and like I said, I remember at that point in time, it was Dave's car. It was the fastest thing I'd around from a street car standpoint. There wasn't anything close. So Lieber's car went pretty fast on the street too. I think he might have got his car into the sixes as well. But that was well after Dave.
And I guess they got a couple guys from the Street Outlaws are going to be at Empire pretty soon here too, right?
Yeah. Actually, they signed Fireball Camaro and. Jeff Lutz. So those guys are going to be coming. I'm surprised, actually, they're coming pretty soon, too. I think it's middle of May or something like that. So
yeah, I believe the 18th.
So a couple of weeks we'll have to stay away from the track. I'll have to stay away from the track. It's going to be a zoo, I'm sure.
Well, I kind of wanted to do some test and tune, so maybe I'll just go there and see that and get a couple laps in.
And sign autographs? May 18th, yeah.
Jeff Lutz and Ryan Martin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Lutz... I'm trying to think the last time I had those guys there, I want to say I think Lutz was there, but I don't know that Ryan Martin was there.
I thought Daddy Dave was there.
Yeah, Daddy Dave was definitely there last time. Did they only? I thought they might have had 4 of them last time. I'm not 100% sure, but Daddy Dave was definitely there. But I have to say, I would like to see that Fireball Camaro. So maybe I'll go and take a look at that and see if I can convince Phil to put a motor like that in his car. Yeah. We can have Fireball Camaro number 2.
There you go.
Well, Mark, we've been on the phone for an hour and 15 minutes. Before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to thank?
Well, holy cow, there's a lot of people to thank, definitely, I mean, you go back to Joe Schmitz, he got us fired up back when we were kids, so I could give him a thanks. And, you go, all the guys that you race with over the years, holy cow, and to still be friends like we are, it's pretty cool. Mike Janis we raced against each other a lot of times, and now I'm over there and helping on the Pro Mod and doing what I can with him.
Yeah.
I'd like to go more with him, but it's just it's a long weekend.
Right.
He's off to Atlanta right now. Hopefully he can do good there again this weekend.
Yeah, we'll see. It would be nice. Be nice for get him 2 in a row. One of these days, we're going to make the trip out to Jansen and basically do the show remotely from their shop with the car in the background.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. We definitely need to do that.
Oh yeah, that would be excellent.
And I'm sure I could be wrong, but I'm sure you probably would like to thank your wife Janice as well. Big time. Yeah.
He's put up with it for many years.
Her name's on the car. That's enough.
Yeah, right. Yeah. She knows I thank her. Just
car owner.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Take it for granted.
Yeah, and then you go back. All your friends from back in the day with Gary Lauf and Jimmy Salemi and Kennedy. We're still all friends. It's kind of neat to see. Yeah,
it is. It is definitely cool. It's a lot of fun, and I would say need to one of these days. I don't know, have a Lancaster reunion. Get all the guys back together from the late '70s, early '80s, and all go out to the track and stand around the beer tent and tell some lies.
Yeah, and then the Phil Harden let me drive his car all them years, beating that thing up. That was a lot of fun. We did pretty good with that car for the time that we ran it.
I would say, thankfully you decided to vacate that seat, so I had something to drive.
Yeah, that car had a lot of drivers in it. That's for sure. Car's been a good car for a lot of years.
All right. Well, I think on that note, you done, Chris?
We're good. I mean, we got everything. Everything's still running and recording. I was just making sure that...
I would say we didn't crash this time?
No, we didn't have any problems. A
Okay.
little bit of a hiccup at the start, but we got it ironed out. A few ticks in, so I think we're okay.
All right.
We covered it. We're good.
All right.
Well, Mark, man, I appreciate you coming and hanging out with us for a little while. Great stories, and look forward to having you come back again, check in through the course of the summer, and let us know what's going on.
Thanks for the opportunity. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely, man. Anytime.
Come into the studio one of these times.
Yeah, you guys, you're about 2 hours away from me?
Yeah, it's not bad. I was in Buffalo this afternoon, so.
Yeah.
Jason travels a lot.
Beers are on me.
There you go. Sounds like fun.
Well, that invitation stands. Anytime you want to make the trip out, we'll be glad to have you.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. We'll talk to you soon.
All righty, bye-bye.
Take care, Mark.
There goes Mark Herbold. Interesting sequence of cars. I mean, some of the stuff that you were hitting on and the evolution of the way that had to leave the one class to move into the other and just kind of ended up with a really nice looking Corvette off eBay.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, that car is really, really nice. And it's God's honest truth. Phil has said to me multiple times, he's like, man, that guy knows how to find the deals. And I mean, the Corvette is really, really a really nice car. I mean, I don't know anything about what he paid for it or anything else, but it's a really nice piece, and it's in super nice condition, and the car works well. I mean, that's in the grand scheme of things, that's really what is most important, right? Is how well does the car work, and it works well.
Absolutely. What do you think? Episode 62, it's in the books. Mark Herbold, big thanks to him for coming on the show and hanging out with us for a little bit. That is going to do it for us here at the North Park Building at Academy Square. We'll see you back here again in 2 weeks. This has been the Final Round Drag Racing Podcast, coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. We'll see you right back here again in 2 weeks. Thanks for watching.